Hello, my name is Crive and this is my Sylvie guide/commentary for Empyrean Sands. I'm gonna use my 52 Empyrean Sands to showcase this, and this was the world's first timed 52 Empyrean Sands. In this video, I'm gonna go over my setup, the talents I used and why I used them, my legendary choice, as well as the route considerations that we had in mind when designing the route. And I'm gonna go over every single trash mob in this dungeon and explain it to you and tell you how you can deal with it, as well as how you can deal with the last boss. This was quite a hard dungeon to heal because I was playing this key with a Helena, and on the last boss, Helena needs extra attention compared to a Maiko. This video has timestamps, so if you are only interested in a certain part, feel free to use the timestamps to navigate. Now I'm gonna briefly show you what I used to time this key. I had these stats. I was using the Mossy Veil of the Woodlands legendary. My weapon had these weapon traits. I was using this talent setup with these gems. Let's now talk about our legendary considerations for this key. Most of the damage in this key is concentrated on the tank, except for the last boss, where we will have damage happening to the group from the orbs exploding, and on this key level, if two orbs go off at the same time, a party member will die because they do so much damage. That's why I am, for the 52 level, tailoring my legendary for survivability, for group survivability, but also for tank healing, which makes the cloak the ideal legendary choice for a 52 Sands. But if you are not playing a 52 Sands, and you are not worried about one-shots on the last boss, then you can worry more about just the tank healing part, which makes the boot legendary very good. I can recommend playing the boot legendary for the Empyrean Sands dungeon because it helps out with tank survivability, but so does the cloak. So if you have the cloak, it's completely fine to play the cloak, and actually also ideal. And if you have a tank that you can trust in, where you are not worried about tank survivability, it's also really good to play the Amulet of Unyielding Gloom for the last boss, so you have a small shield on the group whenever you use your Heart Bloom to have a buffer for the orbs exploding. Let's now talk about our talents for this scheme. We have a couple considerations there. One of them is, of course, that the tank is taking quite heavy damage because we are pulling the whole dungeon in only 4 pulls, and then the last boss is also doing extremely heavy tank damage to a Helena. So we are picking up extra tank healing capabilities with Burden Restoration and also Nettle to the Pedal. And then when looking at the affixes that we have in this key, which are Stone Skin and Shadow Lord, we are also noticing that we are chaining the pulls a lot because of the Stone Skin affix. And because of this, we won't have many opportunities to regain our mana in between the pulls. That's why we are also picking up the combination of Nettle to the Pedal with Natural Knowledge, where we can just spam Nettle Bolt and heal at the same time, giving us a really good mana management. Then the rest of the talents are basically only picked for the last boss, which is that we need Magic Ward, Spirited Fortitude, and Elusive Wilding to survive 2 orbs going off at the same time on the last boss. At least for the 52 level. If you are playing a lower level, you could consider dropping Spirited Fortitude to either pick up Sprouting Nettles for more damage, or to pick up Nurtured Haven for better tank healing capabilities. Now, on the last boss, we also have the issue that it's a boss with a quite long phase with the orbs spawning and then exploding over the course of many seconds, and that's why we are picking up Trailing Restoration. It really helps us have our legendary applied for the whole duration of the intermission. Remember, we're playing the back legendary, so we want to have a Flutter Call Restore Life active on our group so they have 10% increased health and are more able to survive the one-shots. So that's why we are picking up Trailing Restoration. And then Flower Power because it's an all-around good talent, and Blue's Gambit just again to help with tank healing throughout the dungeon, and then to give us damage reduction for the last boss, where we have the blue butterfly on ourselves. Now let's very briefly talk about the route that we played. When designing this route, we had a couple considerations. We are always thinking about the DPS's cooldowns. When are they coming up? When are they available? What's their strength? And then we play around those cooldowns. Then we are also thinking about the affixes. So in this case, we have the Feather Lord. So we were planning to get the Feather Lord here after the third pull, and then to do a big pull after we got the Shadow Lord. A pull that's normally not possible, but because we have the buff, it makes it possible and allows us to only have 4 pulls in this dungeon instead of having to play a 5th pull. Then we also had to consider the Stone Skin affix, and the way you have to play with the Stone Skin affix is that you do pulls with very healthy enemies, with big health bars, that you can then chain into the next pull. So for example, in the first pull, we deliberately pulled a Gravebreaker Brood and a Tomb Guard Reaver, so we can then kill off the rest of the pull and only chain those 2 mobs into the next pull, and then do the same thing again here for pull 3. And this greatly helps us with the timer. We also then took one of the monsters in this pull that has a high health and spawned the Shadow Lord, so we can then have the Stone Skin from one of these monsters also affect the Shadow Lord. Let's now start with the dungeon run. What I am doing here at the start of a dungeon run is always applying my blue butterfly as well as 1 pink butterfly and my restore life to the tank. And what this does is that it already applies my legendary to the tank, which gives him 10% increased max health and 20% armor. Then towards the start of a big pull like this, I'm putting Barskin on my tank as well as using my weapon, because the Helena champion is very weak on pull, and in this way we are helping her set up the pull in an efficient way without dying. Now, for targeting, for playing around the Stone Skin affix, we are targeting a low health mob like a hunter here instead of a brood. If we would target the brood, then the whole pull would live for like a full minute, putting considerable tank pressure on the tank for the whole duration of the pull. And by targeting a middle health mob, we are getting Stone Skin rolling and alleviating the tank pressure quicker. Now, regarding the monsters that we have in this pull, we have a hunter, which has 2 abilities. First of all, he's putting down these traps, and then second of all, he's using a sniper cast, basically Soul Piercer, where he targets 1 player and then shoots out a line, killing that player if you don't dodge the line. Then we have these Sandsworn Husks. They don't have any ability. We also have a Reaver in this pull. What the Reaver does is he charges at 1 player and he also spins in melee. And then we have the Brood. What the Brood does is he has a Decimate cast where he slams the ground, doing heavy damage to any melee player in a small radius around the Brood. And then he also aims 1 frontal, usually at a ranged player. So you need to look out to dodge those frontals happening. Now, we are always trying to play around the Stone Skin affix in this route. So we are chaining the Brood and the Reaver to the next pull here. What I'm looking out for here is to put my Root Sap on a Brood. Brood is the target that does the most damage to the tank in these pulls, and by Root Sapping the Brood, I can avoid some of the damage that's happening to the tank here. And otherwise, it's really important to play around Nettle to the Pedal for the best mana management possible, because we're always chaining here, and this is horrible for my mana because I can never get out of combat and get mana back. So the only way I can keep my mana in a healthy state is by fully playing around Nettle to the pedals. So I'm putting down life pedals and then I am just spamming Nettle Bolt. You don't want to use your Vine unless you are like moving in between packs and you don't have a better global to press, but otherwise just only spam Nettle Bolt because it allows you to get even more of your life pedals back and also to gain 1% mana back with each Nettle Bolt if you are playing the talents that I'm recommending. And in this way, I was able to heal 2 big pulls and I still have 100% mana. Now we are seeing one new mob here. It's the Acolyte of Cenari. They put a dot on one party member that you need to dispel, and they also have a cast that you also need to kick. If you don't kick the cast, then the whole group will take heavy damage. So here we are going into a pull with 2 Acolytes of Scenari. This makes this pull quite dangerous because you need to dispel one target and then heal the other target until you get your dispel back, so you can then dispel this other target. What I'm also thinking about here in this pull is if I should use my ultimate. I had a couple runs where I was using my ultimate here, but then I had the problem that I wasn't really able to heal the Shadow Lord for an extended amount of time, because you really need your ultimate to heal the Shadow Lord for longer than 30 seconds, because the main way that you heal the Shadow Lord is with your Heart Bloom, and you can use 2 Heart Blooms back to back, of course, because you are using your talent that gives you 2 stacks of Heart Bloom, but you won't get the 3rd Heart Bloom that extends your ability to heal the Shadow Lord to 45 seconds, up from 30. But if you are using your ultimate, you get so much haste that then reduces the cooldown of your Heart Bloom if you are playing the talent that allows you to have 2 Heart Blooms, and also gain cooldown acceleration based off your haste. So the only way you can heal the Shadow Lord for 45 seconds then with a 3rd Heart Bloom is by using your ultimate, and in this way reducing the cooldown of your Heart Bloom. So here we want to use the Stone Skin affix to get damage onto the Shadow Lord. So that's what we are doing here. We are getting this Gravebreaker quite low, and then we are spawning the Shadow Lord in order to then put the Stone Skin affix on the Shadow Lord. What I am doing to prepare for the Shadow Lord is that I apply my Fluttercall Restore Life to every group member. I'm also calling my blue butterfly to myself, so I'm doing more healing, and then I'm ulting quite early here just to get the haste, which then applies of course to the Heart Bloom cooldown, and then I am basically just spam healing Fluttercall Restore Life. I'm extending my Heart Bloom when the first one vanishes, and then I'm also playing around my Root Sap, putting Root Sap on the emissary here, and in this way I am able to heal the Shadow Lord. Ideally you would also have your safe haven available here and use that. It's best to use your safe haven in between 2 of your Heart Blooms, so when your first Heart Bloom is already halfway gone, you can use your safe haven. This way it carries over into the next Heart Bloom. So here again we have a pull with 2 Acolytes of Scenari. We always are focusing 1 Acolyte of Scenari if we are playing a pull with 2, and the reason for that is because we don't want to deal with 2 of these debuffs, because that makes it quite dangerous. So here we're getting 1 debuff, I am dispelling it, it's on myself, and the next one is on the tank, and so I'm spam hitting my tank here. Then we have a new mob here, actually a couple new mobs that we haven't talked about here. We have these Gravesides who just do frontals and heavy tank damage. We have these Greed Spawn Sentinels that do an AoE, and as long as they have this Greed Embrace AoE rolling, they are not taking any damage, but they are putting a stacking debuff onto the group. So this is a way that you can kill off all enemies in a pull by not even doing damage to them yourself. You're just waiting for the Greed Spawn to do damage to them. Then in this pull we also had a couple flowers. There's like a small flower, a small lasher, and what they do is they form these puddles that you could see on the ground. And then we also had a big lasher, a barbarous lasher, and what this mob does is that he puts a debuff on the tank that shreds his armor by a considerable amount. So this is also a good target to root sap here in this later part of the dungeon. You can root sap the barbarous lasher to reduce some of his damage. So now we're spawning the next Shadow Lord. I again want to use my ultimate. I want to use it like right before the first Heart Bloom expires. This way it carries over into the next Heart Bloom and even a little bit into the third Heart Bloom if you need to use a third Heart Bloom. Then usually in the middle of my second Heart Bloom, I'm using my safe haven, so it carries over into the third Heart Bloom. And I'm also using Root Sap in the same way here. The most dangerous parts when you are fighting a Shadow Lord are actually when you are in between 2 Heart Blooms, because your next Heart Bloom is not fully ramped up. Like your old Heart Bloom is fully ramped up, but your next one isn't. And that's the part where your group will most likely die, when you are still ramping up your next Heart Bloom. So now we are going into the last boss, which is quite a dangerous boss. You wanna, first of all, look out for the tank frontal. It's happening twice per phase. So here we are seeing the first one, and you wanna help your tank with a damage mitigation effect on every single one of them. So ideally on the first one, you would root zap. I don't have it available here. And then on the other one, you would bark skin your tank. So now we get a phase where we have to look at the beam spawning. You can actually tell where they are spawning by looking towards the edge of the platform. There are these like big circulish rotating devices, and they indicate where the beams here on the ground are going to spawn. So if you have time to look around, you will be able to see them, and then you will be able to see where the area of denials are going to be in this fight and play around them. So here on this frontal beam, you saw me use my bark skin on the tank to make him survive. And then here in a bit, we also have the next frontal coming up. And then on this one, I will then again use my root zap, and I will heal it by, of course, spamming restore life, but also by using a life pedal. Helps greatly with the tank healing on this one. So the boss in each intermission spawns 10 orbs, and you have to kill most of them. Each time you kill an orb, you get a damage buff, so you actually want to kill them to do more damage to the boss, but you don't want to kill them too quickly. You want to kill a lot of them here at the start when you're doing a frontal. So what we're choosing to do here is kill them with the frontal and then pressing defensive, so the tank kills off like 4 orbs at the same time. I'm healing this with my weapon. So I'm using my weapon here to heal them, and then afterwards only I'm first using my Heart Bloom, and then just spam healing the group here, keeping my restore lives on the group, and then I'm also using a second stack of Heart Bloom usually. It depends on the phase though. So the way that I'm organizing my cooldowns here is that for the first phase, so the first time these orbs spawn, I'm using 2 Heart Blooms, and then also my safe haven if it's up. And then for the next phase here that you see that we just played, I'm using my ultimate and only 1 Heart Bloom. So for the phase that's coming up here, I have 2 Heart Blooms again. So now you see me go through the motions again. The orbs will spawn. I have restore lives on the whole group. I have the blue butterfly on myself. Now I'm looking to bark skin the tank. On the frontal, I'm pressing the dice because this is a dangerous part where multiple orbs will die, and then I'm using my weapon to heal it. After the weapon, I'm using my Heart Bloom, and then I'm starting to heal the group here, and we are killing off orbs one by one ideally. And then when my first Heart Bloom expires, I'm using my next Heart Bloom to keep the group healthy, and then I am looking to heal the tank on the next tank frontal with my root zap and then 1 life pedal. If you want, you can also move over your blue butterfly here. All the orbs are dead, so it makes sense to have the blue butterfly on your tank for this second frontal here in the phase. First of all, he will take 5% reduced damage because you are playing Blue's Gambit, but he will also get a lot more healing from you in this way. And that is how we timed the world first 52 Empyrean Sands. This video is part of a series of videos. I'm making a guide like this for every single dungeon. If you are interested in these guides, you are welcome to subscribe. I'm also streaming almost every evening on Twitch. If you are interested in that, if you liked what you saw, if you liked the gameplay, then you are welcome to come by. The Twitch is linked down in the description. My UI is also available to be imported. You can get it and find it also down in the description. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. And otherwise, see you in the next video.